All right, welcome back to another episode of the Platform Killer Development Log, my progress of me working on my first actual video game. Technically not my first attempt, but, you know, my first actual thing that uh, I plan on having it be something that I actually show to other people and allow them to play, and is worthwhile. So, what we have here is the game. And if you haven't been, if you have been following along, a lot of what you're going to be seeing here, right here, it's all looks the same and is behaving the same way as the game previously was. You want to swing your sword, you can swing your sword. If you if you want to do a wall jump, you can do a wall jump. If you get hit, your character will get knocked back and then landed up in the goal for some reason there. And if your character has an assignment to a sword attack or a gun attack, they both work. And if your players tries to move when they are in the down state, they can't until they revive. So all of that, all of the functions and everything have remained the same since last time this game was showcased. However, the code itself has been completely overhauled. Originally, we had this a wall of spaghetti code. A lot of stuff that wasn't were like some of the stuff was carryovers from when I was working on a previous game project, and I utilized some of the foundations I had in that game to build platform killers. I also a lot of this is also just some technical incompetence and some confusing layouts because I was not using a states system for making game behavior. So uh, I decided that I need to go and make a game that it basically has states going in for it and get to work. So what I decided to do is that I so this is the thing. For all of the tutorials out there I found online for a platformer game, Heart for a made into Godot engine, mind you, the Heartbeast's YouTube channel, like he his tutorial on a player character was my favorite one out of the ones I was able to find. The way that the character control and felt was uh, exactly the way I wanted it to be. It had jump heights and it also had acceleration, decelerations, and walking. On on top of that, too, he communicated and explained everything in a way that was much more comprehensible, but also like it was comprehensible for beginner level stuff, but it also wasn't doing a bunch of things that when I'm yeah, um, like the very first Godot course I took, the person was not very good at programming, so I kind of had a reference of what your game should probably not look like, and then um, looking at Heartbeast, I was like, oh, this is a lot better, but it wasn't also to the point where it was like Mr. you know full blown math geek and programming that I'm completely lost with. So he did that, and this right here is that very tutorial video I just showed you. But as you notice, there's also a little thing I add on there. Aside from adding in the wall jumping into the game, there is also uh, a noticeable thing where it says state on it, and there's like different numbers going on for the states. Well, let me explain what I did. So on this guy's thing. Hopefully I can get to show the code. So as you see here, most of the character's behavior was all just done within this physics process function. What I did was basically, aside on top of adding the wall jump feature, I had to cut out basically the physics process and feed in only portions of behaviors to work with uh, when at a time, so the physics process didn't process everything at once. And that is the main idea of states in video games. If you are having a character standing still, that's a state. If the character starts walking, they entered another state. If they are jumping, that's another state. If they're falling, that's another state. If they're doing even a wall jump, a variant on a standard jump, that is its own state. The states are really important when you start getting into games that are more complicated with its features. Like if you wanted to have any game with any sort of like combo system in it at all, state machine's gonna be is gonna be a necessity. So, but a good way to put this is that right here, I drew like basically like I cut and made like a dividing line metaphorically within the code where you have like this stuff that's talking about X input and all of that, and then you have this wide motion gravity. You have like this part here that's talking about physics, the X inputs, all that, and then you have this you know gravity line here. I put a divider in it so that here, like anything about gravity is in this line, and anything about just character movement is in this line. So hypothetically, say I wanted to make um, a thing where since it has applied movement here, that I can choose what states have applied movement. Notice wall jump does not have applied movement. And I also have apply gravity. If I wanted to, theoretically, I could make some states not have gravity on it. But to show what I mean by applied movement, let's show what happens if I take it out of the jumping. So if I move now, I can jump and then like say I jump and then I move forward. I can only move now in my falling animation or state, actually more accurately. So I could do it like that. But if I wanted to take it even further, I could do I could take out apply movement there too and have it so that if the character jumps, I can't do anything about making them turn around in midair. So that is the power of state machines. Basically, you're only feeding in, states in games. So you're only feeding in little bits of instructions at a time, as opposed to, um, let's do that. As opposed to, um, I'm trying to find it. As opposed to this right here. So this right here is the older code that I was working with. As you see here, there's no states, and it's feeding in all the directions at once. And I'm constantly telling it to ignore this directions and that direction and all that, and it gets pretty cumbersome. However, now I have it in a way where, in terms of length, it might be about as long, but in terms of readability, it's much easier because now it's telling you specifically, well, for all the states and what it can be done during each situation. Uh, in it, the way I did all of this though. Now this goes to the next part is that for like the hardcore programming, like if you're gonna do this, like like basically the what would be like the best practice out there if you understood everything. If I had all the knowledge immediately and I could do all this stuff, typically what is the ideal end goal with a lot of this stuff is to not have all the information done within your player script anymore. So let's go over here to kind of show you what I mean. So we have right here. This is an example done by GD Quest of a finite state machine. Okay, as you see here, it's going to be okay. Well, I apparently I messed around with the code a little bit, so I ruined it a little bit. Okay, so as you see here, when it's doing things, it's moving into different states. It's what I was talking about earlier. It's if I do different actions, it's basically puts you into different states. So what's happening though is that you know the script. This is basically the way that this is done is that you have a script for a player controller, then you have a script for a thing that manages the different states you should be shifting into, and then you have another thing that's just describing the individual state behavior for every single state. And well, that this would be the end goal, but I was having a lot of difficulty trying to get a state machine set up that wasn't states done within the code itself. So when I was looking at other resources to work with, what ultimately I ended up doing is that going to Heartbeast's other tutorial, he had this one where he did a series talking about making an action RPG. And within his action RPG tutorials, uh, basically came forth of this idea where instead of you don't having like every single individual thing in here, um, he found a way that yeah, I mean, not he found, but I mean, like he presented a way that I utilized of having the states, all the state listing, like the state machine, within the player script itself and the state behaviors, but not, but I was able to look at what the RPG tutorial is doing to basically feed in the specific directions at a time, and I hotwired that process onto his other onto his other tutorial, and that's what this one was. Basically, it was taking one of his tutorials, looking at it, understanding what he's doing it, taking it to this other thing that I pre-established understood, and yeah, I did it this way. Um, what's good about state machines too is, and this sounds kind of silly, but making sure the right animation is playing at the right time is actually a pretty big issue when I have been doing all this stuff. And what was good about this is that by doing this, you can have just a simple character animations function, which I did this too to also just label what states because long story short, these basically translate to numbers, and I could basically print out the numbers and have the little numbers above the character's head to tell me which state they're in, so I could make sure that the transitions were actually working properly. But now instead, typically if it's like, oh, if it's the character's moving left or moving right, you would have like yeah, the script that's talking about playing run this animation. It would probably be within like your horizontal moving functions and all that. But here, all I just do is it's like, oh, if you're in this state, play this animation. If you're in this state, play this animation. You don't, if you're never going to be in, while you might have overlapping behaviors, you're never going to be in two individual states themselves at once. Thus, I figured, hey, if that's the case, then I am going to just put each one of these states in I mean, just use the animations dictation through the states. So that's another reason why these things are important. But showing it here, we got that. Then I took what I was able to do there, and then I did another hot wiring process where I went through platform killers, and then I was able to get all this stuff back, and that I was able to get yep, there you go. It's like that's the entire process and everything that I needed to do. And this whole entire thing, even trying to get to this version of a state machine is was simply put not uh it man it this thing took um I sorry, I'm just I'm slightly um trying to make sure that I can I want to just check on something real quick. Yeah, that's weird. Okay. Yeah. So this whole entire thing, it took me longer than I really wish it did, but I did clean up a good chunk of the code and organize things correctly, and there's now I'm on the process of being able to do things that I could probably stand to clean up some other things. Good example being like let's say the bullet system here. Instead of just having a singular bullet object, I had to make multiple different objects, subvariants of the bullets to dictate the direction and what player they're going to. I would ideally just have only a single, object that would be bullet, and then the properties of its directions and its spawn location and its hit boxes would, you know, I would just assign it that way through, the scripting itself. But this was my workaround. That's the type of stuff that I'm going to try to finish up and fix up for platform killers, because if I can get this thing cleaner and tidier, then when I present it to other people, it will hopefully run ideally better on other people's machines. Anyway, last thing that's worth saying is that this game is basically going to be mostly in that polishing phase, under the hood, tweaks, because until I get my brother, who is currently busy with things, so his schedule is full, but he needs to get some things out of the way first before he can go over and start actually generating the assets for my game. When I have all the assets to actually skin things, I am going to then fret more about particularities of, like, physics processes and all that stuff, as well as also maybe add in a couple more features of, like, just a couple minor hazards, as well as also do the final map designs, because I would have to redo all the maps, because I can't just just change out the texture sprite on these tile maps. I would have to use the different ones. Do things too, like the menus. Everything for the main menu of this game has been consolidated down to this singular page. It looks kind of ugly in test mode because you can see the collision box, but it's condensed down into this page instead of all the sub menus and all of that. Though, so like, so again, until then, we will get you know until then, I will try to just make this game cleaner under the hood, but probably, like, until the like, I'll probably work on it until a point, and then, like, whenever my brother gets it, I'm going to just go, okay, it's good enough, and go with it. Ideally, this game's not going to be perfected as number one, so there's probably going to be some technical errors along the way. I just want to be able to avoid as much as possible to take it seriously. Also, yes, I this is the words that shows up for when you load up around, but it gets completely obscured from yeah, it gets completely obscured because that code writes over that word. So yeah, there you go. There's a funny at the end.